Well, hello again, and welcome to Doing It Right. This podcast, as you know, those of you who watch and listen regularly, is all about the guest. I'm just a mouth that opens it and lets them talk. And who are guests? Only successful people who have maintained their integrity, because those are the people that are doing it right. So that makes sense, right? You know, this show I'm so grateful for because it's a continuation, kind of, a natural progression of the leadership firm that I have that I founded. I hate to say, 25 plus years ago, and the joy that I have had through the years in working with leaders and helping them be empowered the right way. Now, I also want to recommend, please, that if you like these shows, just hit that red button. It means Google juice, and that's important. Stay tuned because today's guest not only is an incredible, successful woman, but also a very special friend. Diane Paddison, believe me, is a formidable force in anything she has ever set her mind to. And listen to this, credentials. She's a Harvard MBA, a global executive of 2 Fortune 500 companies and 1 Fortune 1000 company. And she's a woman of faith. That's really important. She has been recognized throughout her career as someone who is an advocate for empowering women, leadership, and doing it the right way. And what's most important is that she has intersected her faith with her work, and she founded the number 4 word, like the Word of God, Forward global organization with chapters all over. So, stay tuned.
Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
Okay, Diane, I want to welcome you from the bottom of my toes for being on the show for so many reasons. First, because you're crazy busy. You're putting together a gala, which we'll talk about, it's coming up. And every year at this big gala, how many thousands of people are there?
Well, we usually have between 400 and 500. So it's really a blessing.
It is a blessing. I've been to almost every one, and she always features someone that's kind of famous, like real famous. And this year it's going to be Paula Ferris. Tell us about, hold this up so that you can see a Paula Ferris. And so, for those who don't know Paula Ferris, who is this person?
Yeah, so Paula is a former anchor of Good Morning America Weekend and also anchor of The View. And she is a strong woman of faith and is known throughout the media world. So we are really blessed to have Paula with us on the 22nd of February.
And they always give their story, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of stories, that's a good segue to this book right here. Diane has 2 books. This is a devotional book, and this one, Work, Love, Play, and it is stories. Tell us what's in this one.
Well, the Work, Love, Pray is really my story. Growing up on a farm in Oregon and having the opportunity to go to Harvard Business School, which is a little story in itself. But then how that all just opened up the world to me and what came afterward as far as being a woman of faith, being married with children, and having a career with a Fortune 500 company. And just trying to share mistakes I made, what I learned from it, maybe some pearls of wisdom along the way, so that I can help other women especially, but men read this book too, as they're embarking on trying to do life in a way that they're able to balance. And I know balance is kind of an interesting word, yes. But I think the one I love the most that I've heard the definition of balance from Carla Harris. She is one of the executives at Morgan Stanley that I just admire so much. She said sometimes you're going to be out of balance at work, sometimes you're going to be out of balance at home, but the key is overall you're having joy. And I thought that was a great...
In both aspects of the balance?
Yeah, that you're being filled with joy, and so you can share that with others. So I loved the way she talked about balance.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's actually one of your top takeaways. You said make family first. Tell us about your family before we get into all the stuff that you do.
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed. I'm married to Chris. He was actually one of my classmates at business school.
Oh.
And we have a blended family of 4, which I'm very grateful for, not only my 4 adult children, but also their spouses, significant others, and fiancés. So we have 2 married, 1 going to be married, and 1 that has had a significant other for a few years. And here's the joy of all of it at the peak is I have 4 grandchildren with another one on the way.
4.
So really love
your families first.
Yes.
Your families first. Well, let's get into what Forward is about because it is a fantastic organization. Let me tell the audience, I started to say I've been with you for a long time with Forward, and I'll never forget, Diane, the coffee shop. 10 years ago, was it? Forward is 10 years old. And you had just a little scrap of paper. It reminds me of Herb Kelleher and his napkin when he started Southwest Airlines. And that's what you did. Now you're global. And you were showing me these little scraps of paper and your ideas about this organization, and the mission then and still is what?
Yes. So our vision is to build a global community of Christian women in the workplace. Mm-hmm. So why are we doing that? Because we want to help women reach their God-given potential with confidence. And the amazing thing is God has blessed this ministry way beyond what I could have imagined, and we've been a part of 4 million women's lives to this point in time.
4 million. Well, part of that is your mentor-mentee division or focus or whatever you want to say, and I have been a mentor since the beginning. But how did you decide that would be sort of the impetus of growing the organization globally?
Well, I had the opportunity in my corporate life to implement a mentor program at Trammell Crow Company and also CBRE, and for an organization called Commercial Real Estate Women. And I knew for me personally, but also for all those that went through the mentor programs, that having a mentor is so important. And actually, there's 3 studies that have been done by Catalyst Center for Work-Life Balance and Harvard Business Review that said having mentors or sponsors are one of the top 3 determinants of professional success. So because Forward is for women in the workplace, I felt strongly that when we were ready, we were going to start a mentor program to be one of the 3 key program areas that Forward would offer.
And what are the other 2?
Community groups. So we have community groups all over the United States. In Kenya, we have a global virtual community group that includes Bible study and really comes at it from the perspective of what a woman in the workplace may be dealing with in all of her life. And then the other areas are content. So what we're doing today, we also have podcasts twice a month. and just have amazing guests on those podcasts, which is really, really a great value to our people.
I don't know, audience, if you can tell by her voice, and those of you who are watching, she is the most highly successful woman I've ever met, who also is one of the humblest women you'll ever meet. And those are the kind of leaders that make a real difference. Well, let's get into all of this. When you were in your corporate life, a lot of us who have a faith are wondering or feeling anxious or even not wanting to talk about, I'm a woman of faith. Mm-hmm. Has that changed? And how do you do that professionally? Because none of us want to say, I'm a Christian, because that's the people that I wonder about.
Right.
You know, let us see by your actions and your words. But how does a woman give us some tips to show her side that's the most important?
Yes.
At work?
Yeah.
When there's bad days?
Right. Great question. So you said the word, it's really through your actions. And I have a friend at American Express who, you know, she's a strong Christian. And one day they found out one of their peers had stage 4 cancer. And Susan said to everyone, hey, we're going to actually meet in my office and we're going to pray for this coworker. And it's going to be at 1:00. And her office got full.
Oh.
So they moved to a conference room. The conference room got full. So they moved to a big meeting room at American Express in New York City. You know, and Susan didn't have to say anything. She just said, if anyone would like to join in prayer for our coworker. And it was really her action, you know, that brought people together because they cared. So I think that's the key thing, is just trying to be a person who is trying to be loving. And I think people will see that difference in the workplace.
Well, hopefully, or it isn't authentic. My favorite word, authentic. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Now, this is a silly question, but I was thinking about, because I love to cook and I like to entertain, if you could have a dinner party with, I don't know, maybe let's say 3 people, who would those people be and what would you serve?
Yes. Oh, well, the serving part's probably not my strength, but I can tell you the 3 people really quickly. So number 1, it would be Jesus. That would be amazing. Number 2 would be my daughter, Annie, because Annie has taught me so much about learning about other people by the way she asks questions, that she would make that dinner party so interesting and so fun. And then I think I would invite my dad.
Really?
You know, my dad passed away now over 13 years ago. And I really owe a lot of my upbringing to my dad in the way he gave me responsibility as a 16-year-old on our family farm that most 16-year-olds wouldn't have. And I think it really gave me confidence. And again, it wasn't through him telling me. It was through him just giving me responsibility. And my dad is one of the most humble people you've ever met. So
well, that's where you get
it would be fun to have my dad, and I miss him.
Can I come too?
Yes.
I might even cook something for you. I'll bring dessert. How's that? Give us a specific incident, Diane, where your faith guided you in something in the business world through it.
Mm-hmm. This is an example I use all the time. So when I was at one of the large commercial real estate companies, we had a client who actually, we had some paperwork done on a development deal that $1 million was sort of left out of the picture.
Oh.
And the client asked our person with the company who is working with them to not share that with anyone.
Interesting.
And that person came to me, and it was one of our largest clients. And that was when I oversaw all of our relationships with our largest clients. I think I was called the head of national accounts. And Price said to me, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "We're not going to go forward." And, he said, "Well, I agree with you, but they are one of our largest clients." And I said, "Well, I will go to our CEO. I know he'll back me up." And he did. And, in that situation, there was a lot of prayer and thought, but it wasn't a hard decision. I think for other people, it was a hard thing to watch because they were a little afraid of what might happen, but we didn't lose the client overall. But that was a big decision that just having the Holy Spirit guide me through that was really important.
That's something. You mentioned Annie, setting this question up to the audience. I know that sometimes people look at people like you and think, "Oh, they've got it all together. Oh, they've got it all. Oh, look at her." Tell us about your daughter, Annie.
Yeah. Well, she is the most courageous person I know. She got struck with a chronic nerve condition 10 years ago and has just fought through pain every day. And
Really bad pain.
really bad pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's had 3 operations, and really we've decided that she's really done a great job of managing her medical care, and so now it's really therapy, physical therapy. But, we have a miracle. A lot of doctors told her she could not have a child. And little Everett, that's her little boy, is over a year old now, and she's actually pregnant with her second. Thanks to Dr. Payne, who is willing to take high-risk patients. And so we're
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You said Dr. Payne. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay. I won't laugh, but that is kind of humorous, really.
Yeah, that's true.
She's putting pain. In your opinion, Diane, what are the challenges, just generally speaking, today that women have, maybe less of or more than in the past?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good question. I would say less of is it's really great to see that the younger generation, as we look at research that's being done, that men are taking on more family responsibilities than they did in the past. And so that really helps the marriage be a partnership in handling the chores, taking care of the children, and being in the workplace. So that's probably a little less than maybe when I was coming right out of school. I'm really fortunate to be married with Chris, who has always been my partner like that in sharing. I would say the thing that's heavier and harder is this whole world of social media. And I actually had one of our daughters, we have a weekly Zoom call because our 4 children are from Colorado to Philadelphia to Waco to Dallas. So we do this every week. And, she was mentioning something that was causing her anxiety. And, my response was, stay off social media.
Oh, no kidding.
So I think that there's so much more information flowing, and people are not knowing how to deal with it. Right? They're anxious, and so I basically am off of social media. My team knows how to do social media, so I don't have to worry about it. And because there's a lot of studies out there about the effects on our children and what they're dealing with because they're on social media so much.
Mean girls once in a while, and things that shouldn't be said, and you can't take it back, right, audience? What you put out there on the web is going to stay there forever. Another thing I know about you that would be beneficial to us in the workplace is the importance of networking. And a caveat to this is, my opinion through the years is that people think only extroverts like me, who doesn't have trouble talking, can do that. Well, listen, I've got to tell you, I get nervous too. So what would be tips on the fact that we have to still get out there, Diane? We still have to network. You mentioned social media. A lot of women I know who are more introverted are relying on that because we can be in our pajamas at the home or wherever and no one knows, but we got to get out there in person. Talk to us about any tips for getting into a conversation when it's not a group of like-minded people.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm going to leave with you as a lesson learned for me is that relationships are key. And so a lot of people think networking is going to an event and passing out your business card or, I guess
Or the QR code now.
Yeah, QR codes now. But I think, and I'm fortunate that one of my strengths, I'm a real believer in strength finders. One of my strengths is I'm a connector. And so I actually get energy from connecting with people. But I think going farther than that, I also share that relationships are really important, and it's really not about what you do or what you say. So I'm using Maya Angelou's famous quote, but it's how you make them feel. And I think
Nice.
Annie's helped me. I've learned over time that when I see Valerie, when I walk into Extension, it's not what Valerie's going to do for me. It's like, how is Valerie today? What is she dealing with? Thinking from the other person's perspective, I think is really important. And people will remember you when you really care about them.
No kidding. Yes. I'll tag on to that. One of our episodes, I gave a tip, since this is part of leadership development and what I do in my other job, is a good question to ask that opens up what's important to the other person when you first meet someone. See if you agree, is just to say, what's keeping you busy these days? What's keeping you busy these days? And you know what? When someone asks me that, if they did, which they don't, it's usually, what do you do? Well, I do cooking and I do laundry. That's a bad question. Take it out. Ask something up that's open-ended like that. And what you get back then is wherever that person takes onto the path, they could say something personal. They could say something about work. They could even bring up, we don't know. But you know immediately where that person is coming from, and then you can just shut up and let them talk.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question.
You mentioned your top takeaways, and another one is the worst thing, and we've all had this, the worst thing people can say is no. And that just means not now. Did I get that right?
Yeah, maybe no means not at this time. And I remember once Charity Wallace, who was Mrs. Bush's senior advisor at the Bush Center, and she actually wrote the foreword to Work, Love, Pray.
Oh, that's right.
But Charity asked me to be a mentor in Mrs. Bush's mentor program at the Bush Center. And when Charity asked me, of course, I was so honored. And I said, Charity, I have to say no right now because my daughter is really dealing with some tough health situation and I need to focus on her. But no, my answer no means just not at this time. Please ask me again.
What a beautiful thing to say. I love that. No, not at this time. Please ask me again.
Mm-hmm. And, I find a lot of people, because with a nonprofit, we do need to have funds to be able to run the organization. And as Valerie mentioned, we have a gala coming up on February 22nd. We ask a lot, and there's people that have been on my team that they reflect, well, what did I do wrong, or what's wrong with me? And I always try to say to them, I don't think it's anything about you. They may be really busy.
Right.
They may be dealing with a situation in their family, so just trying to help people not reflect it back on themselves.
Right. Is there a good way to ask? You have asked a lot of famous people to be the speakers at your gala. How do you approach someone like that?
You know what? I always know, and I would just say a lot of our speakers didn't say yes the first time, but just
really
keeping in touch, building a relationship. We're going to have Cint Marshall, the former CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, at the Executive Women for Christ brunch that morning. And this is probably the third or fourth time that I've asked.
Is that
Cint.
right?
And I'm just so grateful. And it's really because she just retired from being the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. So she has capacity.
There you
and
go.
in the past, she didn't have capacity.
Thank you for saying that word capacity, because I think that's a good excuse, a real one, an authentic one, to say back to someone, if you're busy, just to say, I would love to. Right now, I just don't have the capacity, because that's puts it in perspective. Mm-hmm. You don't say, rather than saying, I just can't, or I'm so busy, love that. The word capacity. That was a tip for me. Was it for you, audience? A couple of other things before we wind this up today. I wish we had more time, always. But finding purpose. As I'm coaching in the executive coaching area of what I do, I'm surprised, not really, at how many people say, I wish I could find my purpose. Mm-hmm. Coach me. How do you find your purpose?
Yeah. You know what? I think we all just have to really take stock every day of what brings us joy. And that doesn't mean laughter. That means just what gives us this positive energy. And I knew for me that meeting with women where I could maybe help them with something, whether it was younger, older, my age, gave me joy. And, of course, my faith being my foundation, I just thought, I think there really needs to be a ministry for women in the workplace. And there wasn't one beyond one city at the time when I founded Forward. I think that when you sort of daily take stock of what really gives you positive energy, I think that's God's way of saying, maybe this is my purpose for you. And I can tell you get energy from doing what you're doing right now. And fortunately, you've really spent your professional career doing what you're really good at and what gives you energy.
Maybe that's why I love what I do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a tip. Do you love what you do? Find what you love.
Yeah, find where your strengths match.
Strengths. That goes back to Strengths Finder. So true. I don't think that God would give us something important in our being without expecting us to use it. Mm-hmm. So I love that. All right, here's a fun question I wrote down. If your career journey had a soundtrack, what song would be the theme song for those days when you're just trying to keep the faith and keep the coffee flowing?
That's a great question. Well, my family could answer this question so quickly that Amy Grant is my number one. She was actually our second entertainer at the gala in 2017. But, you know, the song I love of hers is El Shaddai.
Yes.
You know, I can listen to that song and it just gives my soul peace and, you know, just calm. And I think life today can be a little crazy and busy. And I think, you know, if we can be at peace and be calm, I think things happen a little better.
Thank you for that. And the fact that you mentioned, in this case, music. Maybe it's taking time. And I'm really trying to do this myself, audience, so the thumb is coming back to me. But taking time to get up and just go in the kitchen and have a cup of coffee, or maybe get away from my desk at 5 o'clock instead of 11 p.m. and go read something I want to read. But we've got to take, you know, it's on us. We've got to take care of ourselves. And this is, as you said, a crazy world and a time where if we don't, we're going to get crazier. Diane, this has been so awesome, so awesome. And you can see the banner, those of you who are watching on YouTube, of how to get in touch with Diane Paddison, founder of Forward. And her staff is huge. Let's just say that, because it's global. We've talked about that. Somebody will get back to you, and you will want to get involved, even if it's going to the meetings, going to the gala, being a mentor. It can be done online. There are a lot of ways to really enjoy this huge organization that you have founded.
Well, God gets all the glory for that. And thank you, Valerie. It's been really an honor to be here with you today.
Such fun. Coffee time again.
Yes.
Okay, well, stay tuned, because I always have my Valerieism, and let me share with you what it is today, which is, okay, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase.
I love that.
Who wouldn't love that? Just think about it. That's Martin Luther King Jr., of course. Those of you might recognize it. I'll say it again. Faith is taking the first step when you don't see the whole staircase. And that just means take a risk. I remember someone asked me one time, Valerie, how do you, I mean, that was a bold move. And we've talked about all the bold moves you continue to make, reaching out to famous people, having these galas, putting together this global organization. Well, it's just taking that first step. You don't have to see the end, the whole staircase. So I thought that was pretty appropriate. You like that?
I love that. I love that.
Well, listen, audience, the only way that I will know if doing this show is for the reason that I am doing it, and that's for you. It really is. I want to bring guests that will inspire you, that will give you tips, that mean something to you, that will resonate somewhere in your heart, in your brain, in your being. Doing it right. That's what's important. I'm not doing this show for me. It's for you. But how will I know if it's working? How will I know that any of you are impacted? If something resonates with you, here's what I'd love for you to do. Well, first, if you haven't, hit the red button and subscribe. That's important. But also make comments. In the show notes underneath the show, when you watch it or listen to it, there's a place for you to make a comment. I read them all, I answer them all, and it's like I'm talking to you as an individual. So please do that, would you? And until next time, keep being successful, step at a time, but always be authentic. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.